Ever feel like ADHD is costing you more than just your sanity? Maybe it's costing you your finances too. You're not alone. That's called the ADHD tax. And for entrepreneurs with ADHD, it can get really taxing really quickly. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. When to pay it, when not to pay it, and how to stop ADHD tax from just blowing up all of your finances. So quick caveat before we get started. ADHD affects everyone differently, and the way that I am able to mitigate ADHD may be different from how you do it. My best advice is to take these tips and either find parts of them that work or utilize the foundation of these tips and adapt it to the best way that you thrive. First, let's back up because there's two ADHD taxes that we all end up paying at one point or another. The first type is what I call the tax that we all pay to reach the baseline level of adult. And so what that means is house cleaners because your house is trashed, DoorDash because you can't make yourself cook, those kind of things. Like the ways that you have to pay extra just to survive. The second type is the type that I think that ADHD entrepreneurs face the most. And I'm sorry to say this because I think once you hear it, you're gonna be like, oh, she knows. That is when you end up buying multiples of the same product, either because you are replacing one that you inadvertently broke because of your inattentiveness, or you forgot you had it. Mine usually ends up being the second way. I usually end up buying things and finding out right after the return period closes that I already had it. Yeah. That's always fun. Since the ADHD tax is so prevalent, I don't ever advise clients to avoid it because it feels like that's just putting you on hard mode when, like, if you can just accept that there are times when it's beneficial to pay the tax, then you find this happy medium in the middle of just like, I accept that my neurodivergence makes me have to pay a little extra than a neurotypical would. I accept this, but I'm going to work within the confines of that understanding. So when should you pay it? The best way I can put it is when it removes a routine task from your life that severely affects your business. I think that's usually the time that it's worth paying. Hello, me with doing social media. I can't ever figure out how to create a system for me to do it successfully, so I just pay to automate it or don't do it at all. But for the times that I use it, I pay for Metricool so that I'm able to create a calendar of preloaded content that goes out. Saves me the stress of thinking about, oh, I need to do this and I'm not gonna do it. Let's be honest. So then I pay for something like that. And in my life as well, house cleaners and stuff like that, because I'm not gonna clean my house. Somebody has to do it and it ain't gonna be me. I know that. I've tried. I'm not that person. I accept that. Let's move on. Which brings me to the second time that I think you should pay the ADHD tax, and that's when it removes a frustration from your life. It's especially prevalent, again, with people like us who are inattentive and have difficulty hitting that baseline adult level. If it's able to remove a frustration from your life and free up that brain space that lets you be more creative, lean into the better parts of your personality and your business strategy, pay it. Do it, pay it. Pay for the house cleaner, pay for DoorDash, whatever you gotta do. Your goal is to remove frustration from your life. And if you have the ability to do that by just paying extra and you can afford that, you have my blessing. The time that it's really beneficial to pay the ADHD tax is when it's directly affecting your mental health. What I mean by that is paying for doctors, paying for medication, paying for therapy, all of the things that end up costing us more to mitigate the mental health hard mode we've been set on. In my opinion, it's worth it. And I think the consequences of avoiding going to the doctor, getting medication, taking the ADHD tests, having a therapist is so much more detrimental to us than it is to someone who is a neurotypical. When I was running a product-based business, one of the things that I utilized and paid extra for was a shipping service called ShipBob. I hooked up my Shopify and my Etsy store to their integration services. Whenever something was purchased on those platforms, it didn't go to me, it went to ShipBob. ShipBob had all of my inventory, they would pack it up beautifully, tracking numbers, blah, 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 all that stuff, and that was so worth it. And that's my tip for you. If you want to end up paying the ADHD tax for something beneficial to your business, pay for something that automates a task that makes sense to automate. For me, it was shipping and logistics. That was all taken care of by someone else. For you, That might be appointment scheduling or cold email outreach or whatever your business is. There is some way you can take something off your plate that will let you grow your business that is worth paying a little bit extra for. Now, when not to pay, there's 2 times that I think you really shouldn't do it. The first way, if you take a look at my AppSumo purchase history, you'll see that I have 11 pages of things that I've purchased. So that's probably hundreds or at least 100 things that I've purchased from AppSumo. I have no idea how many I use of that, but it's not 100, that's for sure. And that's because I was paying to solve future problems, which I think is an ADHD tax we should not pay. If you're like me, you'll get very impulsive with your purchasing and you'll see something, especially if it's related to your business, that is a really good excuse to buy, even though you don't really need it. Courses, apps, hardware, things like, if you're like, I'm gonna become a world famous YouTuber in the next 3 years, so I need all of the equipment right now. No, you don't. You just want an excuse to buy. Instead, what you need is what's called just-in-time. It's either just-in-time learning or just-in-time materials. What these are exactly what they sound like. It's what you need right now, not tomorrow, not 3 years from now. It's what you need right now to get that foot in the door on your business. It's to reach this step, I need a camera phone and a $3 lapel mic. Go for it. That is perfect. You don't need the latest Sony, Canon, Nikon, whatever. You don't need that. You need what you need to get to step 1 or step 2, or you know what I mean. Same with courses. You don't need to buy thousands of dollars in courses because someday you're going to reach 10,000 email subscribers. So you got to learn how to do that right now. Instead, focus on setting up your business and focus on getting all of those foundational steps in place and avoid paying that ADHD tax of buying future problem solvers, because you never know if that future problem is going to happen. And if it does happen, you might have the experience and the tenacity to solve it without having to buy that thing. You're a budgeting genius. Congratulations. The other time I don't think you should pay an ADHD tax is the time that we all end up paying it, and that is if it replaces an old hobby. Because how many craft closets do you have, or bins, or old paint projects, yarn, yeah, I know. And I'm not saying see that old hobby all the way through, because I know you won't, and I won't, I get it. What I am saying though is, instead of spending the money to start a whole new project and get all the materials, because we always need all the new materials, we need the best of everything, and that's how we all end up in debt. Instead, is there a way that you can utilize that dopamine that new idea is giving you and putting it back into a business or a hobby or a skill, whatever? Think about what it was that originally drew you to the concept of whatever it is you're spending money to replace. I would guess that there is some way to get your groove back and get back into the passion, happy, excited part of that. You just got to think about it a little bit. You know, everything requires work. I know. I'm sorry. I wish it didn't, but it will end up saving you a lot of money and saving you a lot of closet space. A couple of tips for preventing the ADHD tax from affecting your business finances and your personal finances. You know, we always get into these mindsets, not just people with ADHD, I think society as a whole. I know, I'm not going to get into societal talk today, but I feel like we are pushed into materialism and consumerism and the drive to spend more because of capitalism or whatever, and that becomes a slippery slope for people who have poor impulse control. So what I would recommend to you is to acknowledge that ADHD tax may be something that we have to pay occasionally, but it doesn't have to be all the time. You don't have to get complacent into paying an ADHD tax because of your impulse control or because of capitalism, materialism, you know, whatever philosophy you want to argue about. There are ways that you can put up some bumpers or barriers or whatever you want to call them that prevent you from getting into debt all the time when you didn't have to. And then my last tip is something that I hadn't realized and actually had to do a little bit of research into this to find out. And once I found out, I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. If you're getting like an urge to spend, I'm not gonna tell you like, oh, just put in your shopping cart and come back later, because that never works. Or maybe it does for you, it never did for me. I would put it in my shopping cart, and then I would come back and be like, yeah, I'm buying that. And then I'd buy it and be like, why did I buy that? I didn't need that. It's because we're getting mixed up signals in our brain when what we really needed was water or medication or food or sleep, anything like that. That signal was getting kind of like, I don't know what that official term is, and was getting misrepresented in the brain. So you felt like, I will feel better right now if I buy something, when more like, I would feel better if I just drank a glass of water. I would feel better if I got some sleep. I would feel better if I took my medication today. Those things. Those are the ways that you are able to prevent yourself from overbuying solely because of inattentive ADHD. Again, I acknowledge that there are times when it's beneficial, especially when, like I said, it removes the frustration, it makes your life easier, and it improves your mental health. If it doesn't do those things, no. Now, some of that might be stuff you haven't heard before, or maybe twist of something you have heard, because there are so many bad ADHD tips out there. And if you watch this video, you're gonna see the top ADHD tips that drive me crazy and the alternatives you can do instead. I'll see you over there.